You don't even notice it at first. The weight of it creeps in like a shadow you can't shake, a quiet hum beneath your every step. It's there when you avoid the mirror, when you shrink in a room full of voices, when you replay old mistakes like a film you can't pause. You call it shame, a stain on your soul you've learned to live with, to hide, to bury. But what if you're wrong? What if this shame isn't a mark of failure, but a living force, a whisper from the depths of your being, calling you to something greater? Carl Jung knew this feeling intimately. In the winter of 1913, as the world edged toward war, he stood at the brink of his own unraveling. His break with Freud had left him questioning his identity, his purpose, and in that fracture he descended into the unknown. What emerged was the Red Book, a work he guarded like a secret, filled with visions, dialogues, and a hidden redemption that speaks directly to the shame you carry today. Imagine a man alone with his thoughts, pen trembling as he faced the chaos within. Jung didn't seek comfort in the familiar. He plunged into the abyss of his unconscious, a realm he would later name the collective unconscious, a shared wellspring of human experience that transcends time. He saw figures rise from this depth, not as mere fantasies, but as autonomous voices of his psyche. There was Philemon, a wise old man with kingfisher wings, a guide through the madness, and Salome, a woman whose gaze held both seduction and judgment. A serpent coiled through his visions, its presence both terrifying and illuminating. These were not hallucinations, they were archetypes, universal patterns of the soul, and among them Jung confronted the shadow, the dark, suppressed aspects of himself, including the shame he had buried. This was no passive observation. He engaged these figures through active imagination, a process of dialoguing with the unconscious, breaking his mind open to integrate what he had long denied. What happened in those 6 years of descent was a confrontation with everything he feared to face. Jung wrote of standing before a tribunal of his own making, accused by voices that echoed his guilt, his hidden desires, his moments of cowardice. The shame was alive, a force that demanded his attention, not to punish, but to transform. He saw it mirrored in the world around him, the rigidity of society, the wars brewing on the horizon, the collective denial of the soul's depths. The Red Book became his map through this terrain, a record of how he sat with his shame, listened to its whispers, and emerged with a vision of wholeness. He didn't flee from the darkness, he walked through it, and in doing so, he discovered that shame was not his enemy, but a gateway to redemption. Now, let's turn to you. That shame you feel, the flush of embarrassment when someone recalls your past, the knot in your stomach when you falter, the silence you maintain to avoid judgment. It's not a dead weight. It's alive, pulsing with a message you've yet to hear. What if it's not a flaw to be erased, but a call to descend into yourself, as Jung did? Imagine a house where you've lived your life, rooms filled with laughter and pretense, but beneath it lies a basement you've avoided. The air down there is thick, the light dim, and the walls seem to close in. This is where your shame resides, not as a ghost to exorcise, but as a guide waiting to be met. Most people panic here, rushing back to the noise upstairs, distractions, approvals, the roles they play. But if you stay, if you sit in that cold silence long enough, you might hear a voice say, "I've been here all along." That voice is your true self, the one buried under the shame you've worn like armor. Jung's Red Book reveals what happens when you don't run. He stayed in his own basement, facing visions of monsters and gods, of deserts stretching into infinity, of a flood that foretold the Great War. He met his shadow in these images, anger he'd suppressed, pride he'd hidden,
desires he had shamed himself for, and he didn't fight them. He listened. The shame that once crippled him became a teacher, showing him the parts of himself he'd rejected. He wrote of a moment when Salome, with her piercing eyes, drew him into a dance of acceptance, a union of his conscious self with the unconscious depths. This was no escape. It was integration, a redemption born from embracing the brokenness. The shocking truth is that your shame, too, holds this potential, not to define you, but to redefine you. Consider the moments when shame has gripped you. Perhaps it was a failure at work, a word spoken in haste, a love lost because you couldn't be vulnerable. Jung would say, this is your unconscious knocking, demanding you look within. He believed the psyche seeks wholeness, and shame is a signal that something is out of alignment. In the Red Book, he drew mandalas, circular images of the self emerging from the chaos of his visions, symbols of the unity he found through his descent. Your shame is like a crack in that circle, not a ruin, but an invitation to mend it. When you feel it rise, don't push it down. Sit with it. Let it speak. It might reveal the false self you've built, the perfectionist, the pleaser, the one who hides to be loved, and ask you to let it fall apart. This process is not gentle. Jung described nights of terror, where he feared he might lose himself to the visions. He wrote of a figure called the Red One, a shadow of suppressed desire and destruction, who challenged him to face his deepest fears. The shame was alive in these encounters, a force that tore at his identity. Yet through it, he found strength. He saw the collective unconscious reflected in his personal struggle, the shame of humanity buried under progress and conformity. The Red Book was his way of making contact with this, of turning madness into meaning. For you, this means your shame is not personal. It's a thread in the human tapestry, a call to awaken to a larger truth.
As Jung emerged from his descent, he carried insights that shaped his life's work. The archetypes, wise guides, seductive forces, shadowy adversaries became the foundation of his analytical psychology. He helped others navigate their own shame, their own shadows, showing them that redemption lies in confrontation, not avoidance. He wrote of a numinous experience, a sense of the divine within the broken psyche, a light kindled in the darkness. Your shame, too, can lead to this light. When you feel it, when it makes you want to disappear, know that it's dragging you inward toward a self that doesn't need to hide. This is the hidden redemption of the Red Book, not a cure, but a context, a journey through the underworld of your soul. What does this mean for your life? Perhaps you've felt shame as a constant companion, whispering you're not enough, replaying your stumbles, keeping you small. Jung would urge you to stop resisting. The Red Book teaches that the soul withdraws when ignored, and shame is its revolt against a life that doesn't fit. You might wake up tired, nod through conversations, fake strength while crying in private. But this is not dysfunction. It's a mutiny, a refusal to play a role that isn't yours. Jung said people will do anything to avoid facing their soul. But if you've found this video, you're already listening. The pain isn't random. It's a message, a map to the real you, buried under the shame. Let me paint a picture Jung would recognize. You're in that basement again, the cold seeping into your bones. The whispers grow louder, memories of rejection, moments of weakness, fears you've never voiced. This is where people flee, back to the surface where they can perform, belong, be safe. But if you stay, something shifts. The shame begins to speak, not to condemn, but to guide. It shows you the masks you've worn, the one who never fails, the one who never feels, and asks you to lay them down. This is the descent Jung endured, a breaking of the false self to reveal the true one. He didn't find answers immediately. He found confusion, fear, even madness, but he kept listening, and through the chaos, he found his soul. So what happens when you follow this path? You might lose interest in the approval you once craved. Conversations feel shallow, friendships built on pretense fade, and the goals you chased lose their shine. This is not failure. It's the old you dying, making space for the real you to rise. Jung lost friends, faced ridicule, but he couldn't return to pretending. His Red Book was a record of this freedom, a testament to the redemption found in shame. For you, this might mean isolating, crying without reason, feeling rage or guilt surge and recede. This is the unconscious rising, bringing what you've repressed to be seen. It's messy, painful, but necessary. The awakening doesn't end with the descent. It leads to a new way of being. You start saying no without guilt, walking away from what drains you, letting silence carry your truth. You grieve the old self, the one who hid, who performed, who sought love through shame, and thank it before letting it go. You build a ritual around your silence, as Jung did with his journaling and painting, treating it as a temple where your soul speaks. You create a new code. I am enough as I am. I protect my peace. I walk away without explanation. This is the redemption Jung found, not perfection, but authenticity, a life lived from within. The world will try to pull you back, labeling your shame as weakness, urging you to medicate or distract. But Jung knew the soul's purpose is to kindle light in the darkness. Your shame is not a diagnosis, it's a door, an initiation into a truer self. He stepped into the abyss, losing his old identity, his theories, his sanity, and emerged with fire. You have that power too. Surrender to the descent, sit with the shame, and let it transform you. You're not broken, you're being uncovered. The Red Book's hidden redemption is this: your shame is alive, and it's leading you home.